So in lesson 24, we're going to look at how we can add some lights to our plan and edit them so we can change their patch and their mode. As I mentioned in the previous lesson, there's 3 or 4 different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that I use, but the idea here is to try and to show you my method and how I like to do things. So I'm going to start off with just using the properties menu for making adjustments to lights. So in lesson 24, we're going to start to look at how we can populate this plan with some of the lights and provide it some of the information that it needs to make it into a workable plan. So I'm going to move my my plan down, and I'm going to have a look at this truss here. This one's gone wrong for me. I used the import tool and it hasn't put the bar exactly where I need it. All of these sorts of paths in the wrong place. And of course, when I've used that convert tool, I've actually lost the original drawing, so I can't really see what was intended. I have to keep referring back to my CAD drawing, which is another reason why I try not to use that method of importing. I'll just bring in my CAD plan. It's gone in as a separate layer. In fact, one thing I want to do is just take all these layers and group them. So I'm going to take everything that's got the prefix LX, group, and I always call this LX underscore version 1 underscore plan. And I'm going to continue working my working layer. Actually, no, I'm not going to build a new layer, which I'm going to call LX underscore 3D, because that's the 3D version of the lighting rather than the 2D plan. And I'm going to make that the active layer by clicking on the tick. So ignore the working layer now. So now anything I do is going to appear on this layer. Now all of these here have stayed on the layer that was it was imported in. So if the drawing was made, so what does it say here? If I hover over it, layer LX version 1 none. So these were all on the layer none when I drew the drawings originally. So all of these will now need to be selected and moved to the correct layer, which is in itself slightly frustrating. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. First of all, you can just select it by highlighting it. If you right click, you can actually select fixtures by type and by position. So I can select all of my fixtures. Anything that's been placed in so far, they all highlight green. I'm going to go right click, properties, and I'm going to apply it to LX3D. Okay, so they've now been moved to that layer. What hasn't happened, of course, is all my bars. Now I've got so many separate bars, I'd have to select them all individually to do this. Another reason why custom imports aren't my favourite, or the conversion tool. So these ones are quite easy. I can just select these two. There's another one there, I think. No, that's not one. That's the original pipe. So if I hold down Control, I can select multiple objects as I'm going. The booms, actually, this is quite convenient the way it's done it, because that's actually what you'd need to do anyway. I'll come to the booms later. But I'm going to go right click, properties, and then assign these also to LX3D. But what I could also do is I could create another layer that works in another direction. I could call them LX1, LX2, LX3 and have these pipes on separate layers. And then what that means is if I turn off LX2 layer, it would turn off all the lights on it as well. But I've also got the option of turning off, for instance, I could create a layer for Max 600s, and all the Max 600s, which are these 6 lights here, they could all be on a layer and be turned off, but leaving this pipe on. So that sort of works a bit like the class and layer system in Vectorworks. You have 2 different categories of ways to turn things off. You can turn things off by location or by fixture, just by choosing how you label the layering of objects. So I'm not going to do that now, but that's something that we could play with a bit later to see how that works. What I'm going to do for now is just create a new pipe and call it interactive. I've got my snap on, so I'm going to start at 0 and drag it out across here. The length of the bars, they're all about 8 meters long. I'm going to set the trim height to 1 meter. Now there's a deliberate reason why I do this. If you put it on the floor, when you turn your set back on again, if it's at 0, the lights will be underneath the floor and you won't see them turn on and off, which is frustrating. 1 meter is the height that you'd have a bar at when you are flashing out on stage. It'll be at sort of body height, so you can hang it easily. And the lights, most lights aren't more than 1 meter long. I know some are, so maybe make this a little bit higher if you think you might be working on those sort of lights, but at 1 meter you can easily see a light turn on and off when you select it, so you can check it's working. If I set it to 8 meters, which will feel like it's taken out, I may forget that I haven't actually set the height for it yet. So I always insert my pipes at a an obviously wrong height so that I can work on it and remember to come and change it later. So I've left it at 1. I'm going to change it to LX1 because that's actually what that bar is going to be, and I click OK. So I've got my new pipe, and now I'm going to, actually I'm just going to move it down a little bit, it's a little bit too high. It's trying to snap, that's why. Let's turn off my snap because it obviously needs to be at a point which isn't exactly 0.5 meters from the center line. Okay, so I just have to assume then that these bars sit somewhere around here. Now this must have fitted together nicely on my plan, so I'm going to just move it in a little bit. So I'm going to move these all across because that bar that it's been placed on is actually completely useless to me. It's not convenient to have lots of separate bars. I did actually have this on my Opera House model because the front of house was sort of a horseshoe shape auditorium, and it meant that every single light was going on a curved pipe, which is just a little bit infuriating. As I was showing you earlier when I was doing curves and arcs, it's very difficult to get exactly the right shape. So in that case, it was actually easier to have all the lights. They were very accurately drawn on a CAD plan, so when I imported it I knew the lights were in exactly the right place, but they all had these individual bars all around the front of house. So it did look a bit messy on the plan, but I knew the lights were very accurate, which was a priority at that point. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do is just demonstrate to you another tool which is quite useful, and I'm going to go with this one up here because this one's perfect. I've got 2 little stubby bars that's coming with my pars, but actually what I want is a bar all the way across. Now I happen to have a line here. This line is exactly the size of the bar that I'm going to use. It's just a normal line. If I select it, in fact actually it's made up of 2 lines. How interesting. That might not work. Let's just stay with this side for now. This is exactly the same as using this line tool here, but this has been imported from AutoCAD, but it is still a line. If I go up to Tools while it's selected, Convert, I can convert lines into pipes. And there we go, it's just turned that into a pipe for me. Didn't give me the options to change the height, so I'm going to go into Properties. The very first thing I'm going to do is go to Hang Structure and name it. So it's going to be LX5. And on pipe, I'm going to set it to 1 meter. Okay. And nothing actually changes in the view, but it gives you an idea. Now it's the wrong size, so I am going to drag this into the middle. It's not quite on center, is it? So I'm going to move it to there. And then using the little anchor at the end, I'm going to drag it out so it's the same height, also same length as the other bars. So I'm going to populate some of the lights on this now just to get things going, but we've already done that in detail, so I'm not going to do too many, just to demonstrate. So I've got a source 4 at the front here. Now those are either 5 degrees or 10 degrees. I'd have to refer to the plan to check. In fact, I can refer to my key. And my key has conveniently converted some of my fixtures for me. Yet another reason why the convert tool isn't so convenient, because I don't really want fixtures out there. But there we go, that symbol is a source 4 10 degree. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to choose my source 4 tool, and there's a CE source 4 and a source 4. There's not actually a difference, but it's nice to know that one of them's safer than the other, I suppose. I'm going to click and place that on the bar, and I'm just lining it up with the symbol. I'm not doing anything more complicated than that. I'm just eyeballing it. C changer. To mount the scene changer, we must select both the C changer lens and the C changer as an accessory. Now I do have C changers in this production. They should be on the balcony rail, or maybe at the front. So I'm going to show you this later. Before we had lusters, we had these beautiful things called C changers, which was a CMY colour mix that went in the lens of a source 4. So I'll show you that later because it's a good way of demonstrating how to edit accessories, but they weren't in these lights here, so I don't know why it's asking for that. Now this isn't a source 4 10 degree, it's a 26 degree. It's coming as default. Every source 4 comes in as default as a 26 degree. So I could right click, Properties, and then in Fixture, I get the option here for a lens 26 degrees. So if I make that a 10 degree, click OK. It's now changed that to a 10 degree source 4. Now if I'm going to do quite a few of these, I've got options. Well, actually first option I could just copy and paste. I could just do Control Z, and it's just changed to say you cannot hang fixture, and now I can drag across and just keep clicking. I'm going to do Control C again, or Control V, and place another one. The other thing I can do is I can build it in the first place in here. So I go New Fixtures. I I can go to manufacturer, ETC, doing it the slow way. ERS, C source 4. And then here I get to change the lens type to 10 degree and insert it, and now it appears in my library. I get to name it. I'm going to leave it as that because it's got everything I need in it. Click on that, and now I can continue to place the fixtures. Oh, it's giving me another notice again because it thinks it's a new fixture. There we go. Now I wanted to show you, the main thing I want to show you is how to edit patch and mode. So we've done a couple of things here at inserting fixtures. If I take a source 4 par to start with, because it's nice and simple, it's just one dimmer. I've got loads of different ways to edit this, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways in later lessons, but I'm going to start off by just editing it lightly in the property menu. So right click, properties, and you've probably spotted this already as we've been jumping in and out of this menu quite a lot. As long as you're in fixture up here, you've got some options. You've got general, where we can change the lens type again. So we did select MFL, but we could change it here if we wanted to. We can move the angle of that lens around. So if it's an elliptical beam like a par or source 4 par would normally have, you can spin it. Actually, you spin the lens around. Lamp doesn't often make a difference. You can label it. You can say what's its purpose. So this is a top wash. Oh, with scroller, in fact, because we had colour scrollers in all of these. We can change the clamp. This is quite handy because the clamps are different heights. We can create our own as well. So this will help get the lamp the exact spacing away from the bar that you'd expect. So a lot of clamps, you know, different length spacings. We can play with that. These tools here are really useful for spinning a lamp around. So if we want to change its direction, it's really more useful for moving lights. I'll come to that in a minute because I don't want to get lost here. Point of view is a kind of a useful way of being able to see where light's pointing. It's all green at the moment. I don't know why. It's must be pointing at something that's green. We're going to look at that in a sec. Beam options is a duplicate of the options we got when we right click on the simulation mode in the shaded editor. You get view options and you get these same parameters. But here we can override the parameters for this light. So if you've got your beam turned up to 10 on your global settings, you can override it in here again to make it even brighter. Sometimes this is actually really necessary. You're going to have a light that's just too dark, or it's maybe, you know, magnitudes of times brighter or darker than other lights in the rig, and you might want to change it to make it feel like it's more natural. But patch is where we want to go at the moment. You've got channel, dimmer, circuit, number, and patch. Now we haven't actually created universes yet, so we can't easily do this. So for now I'm going to create DMX-A. It comes with 4 standard universes and address 1. If we click use DMX address, it just changes your dimmer number so that it can only be what's in the patch. I'm going to turn that off because in fact we will, if we was doing this at the Churchill Theatre, there'll be a circuit number. The circuit number will be the same as the dimmer number, but it may not be the same as the patch, depending on what address the dimmers are at. But channel's the most important one. I can't remember what this also says there, 141. So this is going to be channel 141. So we'll make sure that's labelled. We're going to leave it on DMX-A and address 1 and click OK. And that's now patched. And because we've added the channel number, it's come up there to say that's channel 141. So we don't actually need this anymore. And technically we don't need the distance either, but we'll leave it there for now because it is on a layer, so we can turn them off in one go. Now we're going to do the max 600 just to demonstrate something different. Right click, properties. Here again we can change some of the lens types. Here this little symbol here is really important, and actually the max 600 is quite good. It's got a bit more information. It also shows you these 3 hash tags which show, these denote the display, and this denotes where the cables come in and out. So every moving light has a different direction for the way the lights hang. Max 600 is annoying, they go to the side. Did I get my Mac Vipers installed? No, I didn't do Mac Vipers in, did I? BL5s would be slightly different. Let's just put one in as an example. Right, it's just proved here why I can't just search for things in the, got to go back to the root, not in the library. So VL5, double click, insert. Right, and there we go. Sometimes right click, finish placing fixtures, and you see there's a little arrow there that denotes the direction of the cable entry. everywhere I would have a standard. Now what I do, I always ask the chief LX on a production, the first thing I say is, which directions are your cables going? And sometimes they're really annoying and they say the arrow will point downstage, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the cables are going to point upstage. Sometimes the cables and the arrows point the same way. We don't have the arrows in Wysiwyg, so it's really important that they give you the direction that the cables will go. And if you don't know, then ask a manufacturer or a hire company to tell you, or take a picture of the back of a light and show you which direction the arrow goes relative to the cable direction. Now a Max 600, I believe, cables go sideways if you want the arrow to point down, but I think it actually goes this way. So just to prove the point, I'm going to just select all of these, although I could also go and select my fixture from my menu. Just to demonstrate, right click, select fixtures by type, select Max 600s, same thing. I would also select my one for my key there, so hold down control and select to deselect it. Right click, properties. So I'm going to do all these in one go, and I'm going to spin, no, not, I'm going to pan it by 180 degrees. Apply, and now you can see that all the cables have moved to be the other way around. The reason I said spin accidentally is because I was thinking it'd also be good to explain to you that if you want to hang something so it's over-rigged, you spin it by 180 and everything flips as a mirror image as a result of that. It's exactly the same as real life. If you spin something up above the bar, everything will be the opposite way around. So you do need to really think about all of this. And I spend a lot of my time with my colleagues trying to think about how a light might be by hanging our heads upside down, trying to picture what it'd be like when it's rigged. I'm sure those of you that use Wysiwyg a lot have been there as well. It's not just me. And even if you have a light in front of you, sometimes if it's sitting on the floor and you're trying to imagine what it's like hanging, you just can't get your head around it. You have to hang it and you have to actually hold it with a mate and say, right, so which way around is this going, or which way is the cable going? Right, now pan it downstage. What's it? Is that going the same direction as it is in Wysiwyg? Really important you check this. It can really cost you a lot of time later if you get things the wrong way around. So there we go. Now all the VL1000s, I know these cables upstage the way that we do them. I've never done a production where they haven't been, so I'm going to select fixtures by type, VL1000 TS, go to properties, and I'm going to move the pan by 180 degrees. And now the cables are upstage. Okay, now the other thing I wanted to show you, I'm going to do this on, I'm going to do it to one fixture by for now, not on mass, but some of this you could do to all your fixtures in one go. Moving ahead allows you to do pan inverts, which I would suggest normally gets done on a lighting desk. You don't do that to the actual fixture, but if basically the rule is anything you do in real life you copy in Wysiwyg. So somebody applies a pan invert to the fixtures, then you apply it here as well, even regardless of whatever's happening in the lighting desk. If the board op's saying to you, oh, I've reversed the pan on my lighting desk, therefore you have to reverse the pan in Wysiwyg, ignore them, because if you've reversed it in the lighting desk, it means it's reversed it in Wysiwyg automatically, because the data is coming in the opposite way around. You only reverse pan until if the fixture's been had its mode changed effectively. In control, this is where we set the patch, so we could en masse choose the universe, and we could apply it to say address 21 in universe A, channels 141. So some of these things we couldn't do en masse, we'd have to do it one fixture at a time, but you could select all of them, assign them all to universe. Colour isn't really applicable at the moment. I'm going to go through that a bit later. And where are we? At lesson 28, we're going to look at what the lists are here and how we can build custom colour wheels. Options is the most important thing I want to show you here. Is the mode. We can select a mode in our light, so we need to select it in Wysiwyg. So whatever mode is being applied in real life needs to be applied here as well. So the production electrician needs to know this and tell you what they have chosen, and you need to apply it in Wysiwyg. Again, if it's wrong, it won't work with the lighting desk. If the lighting desk copies you and you're not doing what's been done on stage, then nothing you programmed will work. Although, to be fair, most modern lighting desks, you can, if you change the mode afterwards, it will still figure out what you were trying to do the first time, but you might be missing important attributes and things. So try to get this right. So that's all okay, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm just going to demonstrate one more time with the VL1000. Actually, I'll do this time, I'll select them all. Select fixtures by type, VL1000s, right click properties. Also not always clicking a blank spot when I right click, otherwise select what's underneath it. Options, dimmer patch, fixed. Now this doesn't have modes, but what you do have the option with the TW1 is to have an external dimmer that drives the lamp rather than using the dimmer built into it. So you have a separate socket, you know, two 60 amp plugs going into the unit, one to control the hard power for all the mechanical operation, and one to control the dimmer. And that's that option has to exist in Wysiwyg, because if you're doing it in real life, it needs to happen here as well. So I can never remember which way around this is, but fixed is, I believe, using the internal dimmer, and assignable means it's adding. I'll find out. Say if I go to patch, if I hit apply. Alright, if I close this and open it again, it should give me the ability to add. Yes. Right. So now I've got two. This wasn't here before. I've got control and patch. So control is the address for the fixture, and patch is the address for the dimmer, for the lamp. And that's because we've added an assignable dimmer patch. So we've got those options there. And you might have two separate channels. I doubt it, but you probably want them both to be, what have I called it here, channel 103. So you might want a channel 103 for the patch and a channel 103 for control. This does get confusing later when we're looking at the data mode, but we'll come to it then. I'll explain a bit more carefully how that works. Also, TW1, sorry, Mac VL1000 also has a gobo list that you can edit, just like the color list in the TW1 and the Mac 600. So again, we'll come to custom gobo wheels in lesson 28 when we talk about that. So that's the importing and how we edit the light properties in lesson 24. In the next lesson, we're going to look at accessories.